much for being here a part of the Developer Summit. It's real fun to have you around, and it's definitely going to benefit our delegates too in India. Well, Todd, can you tell us a bit about yourself and your role at Telerik?
At Telerik, I am the Chief Technical Evangelist, which is sort of a big title, but basically it means that I spend my time traveling around the world, traveling around the United States, teaching developers about new .NET technologies, new Telerik products, educating them, and then spend some of my time doing business development as well. But basically, I'm in the position of taking all the feedback from developers and bringing that back to our product team so that we can build tools and UI components that everybody needs in the .NET community.
Yeah, that's cool. But what, according to you, is the future of web browsers, and how is this future poised to affect the applications we built on?
The future of web browsers is really interesting right now because we're right on the verge of the next generation of web browsers. We've got Firefox 3 just about to come out. We've just got the release candidate this very week. We've got IE 8 coming out. We're already seeing betas. And as we move forward in this next generation of web browsers, what we're really seeing is a commitment from everybody to implementing standards more accurately and more consistently. And so for web developers, this means we can start taking advantage of these standards across our web applications, making it easier to develop applications in time and do application things that we couldn't do before when standards weren't implemented well. So we'll see better standard support. We're going to see more offline applications. I think that's a big direction for the web in the future, is being able to access the web when you're not connected to the internet directly. Firefox is introducing support for that, and I think we'll see more of that in IE as we move forward with IE 8.
Oh yeah. Alright. The Ajaxified internet has opened up new vistas on the web. However, this also brings along with it a new set of challenges. So Todd, how is ASP.NET Ajax poised to solve these new challenges?
Well, you're right. Ajax really does introduce a number of problems when you add it to a website. By default, a website has a number of built-in usability factors that help your users navigate the site, such as populating the back button, easy bookmarking. When you add Ajax, these very popular, in fact, the #1 most popular user feature of the browser, all browsers, is the back button. When you add Ajax, you break these features. You break this concept that your users are very familiar with. So you need a way to fix that. And one of the things that ASP.NET Ajax does for developers and ASP.NET developers is provide us easy ways to do that. So as we move forward into the next versions of ASP.NET Ajax, we get automatic history support, we get bookmarking support right in the framework, so we don't have to spend time writing the plumbing and the code that makes that happen. We can just fix the problems of Ajax and continue to use it in our applications without the drawbacks that it introduces. So it's a real big productivity booster when we use a framework like ASP.NET Ajax to write Ajax for the web.
Yeah, that's great. Todd, ASP.NET MVC provides a new way to think about web application development. How is technology going to radically change the way in which traditionally ASP.NET development has been happening thus far?
So ASP.NET MVC is an interesting development within the ASP.NET community. It's very different from traditional ASP.NET development that we've been used to now for a number of years. And it's very important whenever we talk about MVC to recognize that it's not a replacement for web forms technology. The way we develop web forms today is not going away. It's going to be here. It's going to be enhanced for years to come. MVC just introduces an option. So for those developers that want to develop in a more patterned way, then MVC is out there for them. It's a tool they can choose, and it's going to create sort of this avenue for developers that find the current web development with web forms to have the limits that it has, and they don't like those. It's going to give them a way to do .NET in a cleaner way with MVC.
Okay. What do you think are the top 3 reasons why developers should consider switching from web forms to ASP.NET MVC?
Sure. Within that space now, so we've identified that MVC is an alternative. It's not a replacement. And so when you're looking at MVC and you're trying to decide, should I develop with MVC, should I develop with web forms, really you've got to ask yourself a few questions. And I really think it comes down to a very simple list. It starts with, are you happy with the current way you can develop applications with ASP.NET? If you are, you probably don't need to switch to MVC because there are plenty of tools and plenty of frameworks out there that fix the problems that are somewhat inherent to web forms. If you're not happy and you don't like the way web forms development is, then consider switching to MVC. If you want to be able to more easily test your web applications, that's a big bonus that you get when you switch to ASP.NET MVC development, is testability built right in from the ground up. You can use test-driven development when you develop for the web with MVC, so you get a lot of the benefits of testing your applications that you can't do with traditional web forms when you do make the switch to MVC. So if that's important to you in the way you develop, it's another good reason to make that choice. So there are pros and cons definitely to each track you can take developing with ASP.NET in the future. You just have to weigh which one is most important to your needs and to your project.
Sure. Todd, Microsoft's next generation Windows presentation framework has been around for more than a year now. Why are the adoption rates still low?
Well, that's kind of funny. So WPF has in fact been out for well over a year. It's not new, but we are seeing that the adoption is very slow, both from our vendor perspective as a UI component vendor. The demand for WPF UI components has been slow, but the reason is sort of hard to trace. A lot of people would suggest that it's because, frankly, they're satisfied with WinForms, and so it comes back to that saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so plenty of enterprises are content with the WinForms model for developing line of business applications, and WPF hasn't represented enough value to make the switch. And we've also sort of got the message from Microsoft still that if you're developing line of business applications, which a lot of enterprise apps are, WinForms is still the mainstream recommendation. It still has the mature tools, it has mature guidance, it has Smart Client Software Factory, CAB, and you get that with WinForms, and you don't get that yet with WPF. It's certainly in development. We can see all these things coming together now here, sort of mid-2008. We've got Prism in development. We know UI controls that are missing from WPF are just around the corner. When those arrive, we'll finally start to see WPF's adoption rates sort of meet what we expect. So I expect by the end of 2008, we'll see WPF really start to take hold and start replacing Windows Forms, but really we're waiting on better tools, better framework improvements before WPF gets the adoption we expect it to have.
So what is the future for WPF? Although you've answered a part of my question already, but I would still want to know what is the future for WPF and what Windows computing professionals look forward to in the next 6 to 12 months.
Sure. So there's no question that Windows Forms is a dying technology in the sense that it's not going to be improved anymore by Microsoft. The version of Windows Forms, WinForms we have now is the version we're going to have forever. So WPF is definitely the future of Windows Forms development, or Windows development rather, and so we have to sort of accept that and start looking towards the future. And really, again, the reason that developers are reluctant to right now is there's so many productivity things missing on the WPF scene, but those are all coming in the next 6 to 12 months. So Prism is out. Prism is, again, the CAB equivalent being built from the ground up for WPF. It's only been in development for about 4 months now, but in the 6 to 12 months, that period we're talking about, I expect that will mature and reach the point where enterprises can seriously consider WPF as a valid alternative to WinForms because it has now the mature tools and frameworks it needs, both in the guidance sector and UI, third-party, rich market sector. So I think in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll really start to see WPF development take off as these things mature.
Cool. Todd, for those of our viewers who crawl out from under the rock, can you tell them more about Silverlight and why they should be excited about this revolutionary new way for developing RIA applications?
Sure. Silverlight is something I'm really excited about. I love what's happening in that space, especially now with the Silverlight 2 Beta 1 that's out. For people that don't know, Silverlight is really enabling a new generation of rich applications to be written for the web. We can write .NET code in Visual Studio. We get all the IntelliSense support. We get the rich IDE, and then you compile it, but then it runs in the browser. It runs in the client. It's not running on the server anymore. We don't have to write JavaScript. It's a really cool way to write these dynamic applications. And since we were talking about WPF, there's a big crossover between WPF and Silverlight. And since there's so much excitement around Silverlight right now, I really expect that as developers pick that up, it's really going to drive the adoption of WPF as well, because XAML and .NET, a lot of the concepts are similar between these two technologies. So both are going to accelerate and grow as we move on throughout this year. But it's a great technology that all developers should start taking a look at now with Beta 1 being out there.
Yeah, that's great. Todd, what are some of the internet's more visible Silverlight web applications, and what is your take on that?
There aren't really any great Silverlight applications to point to right now because obviously we're still dealing with a beta plugin. So we have Beta 1 of Silverlight out now, Silverlight 2 out now. Beta 2 is expected in several weeks' time. We'll have one more Beta 3, and then finally get the final version towards the end of the summer. So in the intervening time, we have lots of little demos that we can look at. There are great demos like the iZufari application built by Internology, a great Microsoft partner and Teller partner in California. Great types of applications that showcase the power of what you can do with Silverlight, but they're still not really in production environments because we still need that finalized plug-in version. A great application to look for, though, to see sort of what's going to come is the Summer Olympics. The Beijing Summer Olympics are going to run their entire, or the NBC side of that is going to run their entire media operation on Silverlight. So we can all kind of look to that to see the power, especially on the media end of Silverlight and what Silverlight can do. And I think it's one of the cooler examples that's out there right now of Silverlight's power.
Okay. Silverlight 2 Beta 1 is now out. Is Silverlight really ready for prime time? And how's the security there? And Todd also would like to understand how's it deal with latency, concurrency, message brokering? Is the cross-platform, cross-browser story real? How far can you really get away from JavaScript?
So that's like 10 questions in one, so I'll give you maybe half of them. Silverlight Beta 1 is out, and it's definitely a good place for developers to start looking. Silverlight is definitely for real. It's a valid development platform. If Silverlight 1 was a little weak, it certainly was just sort of setting the clock for getting the plugins downloaded and installed on people's browsers. Now that we have .NET and Beta 1 of Silverlight 2, it's really created a very compelling development platform for .NET developers to take their skills and apply them in a new way for web development. So there's still a few things that need to be finished. There are some security issues, especially around the client bin, that need to be addressed between the Beta 1 and the future releases. There's performance issues that need to be addressed. Clearly we need more controls, more tools, but all of these things are coming, and we know they're coming both in the future betas and then from the third-party market later this year. So I think by mid-year, towards the end of summer, as we reach the end of 2008, it's going to be a very robust development platform. Clearly still in its infancy. This is really, even though it's version 2, Silverlight 2, this is really version 1 of the major .NET development platform. And we can only expect future versions of Silverlight will continue to improve upon that. And the cross-browser, the cross-platform strategy is absolutely real. Microsoft has showed a great dedication to implementing Silverlight, the plugin, on a number of different platforms and browsers. So already we have Mac support for Safari on the Mac OS. We have Windows support with plugins for Firefox, IE, Safari. We've also now seen the mobile support coming for Nokia platform, Windows mobile platform, and we've often heard allusions to other mobile platforms that Microsoft is talking about putting Silverlight on. So Microsoft is definitely not making this a proprietary technology locked into their own stack. They're reaching out, they're making it broadly available, so it's a safe choice for developers who are looking for a technology platform they can build on that's accessible by a number of devices, and pretty much a range of devices that encompasses almost all the users out there you could imagine.
Yeah, that sounds really promising. With Todd, Silverlight 2 Beta 1 has introduced a lot of essential UI controls. However, it still has some work ahead of it to become an equal peer among stalwarts like WinForms and ASP.NET, right? What do you see as the future of Silverlight UI controls?
Well, this is sort of a softball to a guy from a UI component company, so clearly I agree with you that even though we've seen the beginning of UI controls in Silverlight, there's a big big gap between what's there now and what a developer would need to be as productive in Silverlight as they could be in Windows Forms or ASP.NET today. So Microsoft has already said they're going to introduce a lot of new controls as we move forward in Silverlight's progression. We've already got controls like a data grid, calendar, and some other things like that, but we're missing really essential controls like tree views, tab strips, things that you pretty much use in all modern applications these days. So Microsoft will provide some of these. They're providing all these Silverlight controls in a very cool open source model, so you can take them, modify them, redistribute them if you like. And then third parties like Telerik are going to build very rich UI components, as we've done for other UI platforms like ASP.NET, WinForms, that will sort of meet those expectations that developers have for a toolbox full of the tools they need to build an application quickly without wasting time rebuilding the wheel, rebuilding the UI components they're used to using to build a .NET app. So expect those from UI vendors across the market. Telerik will be introducing its own Silverlight UI controls later this year. I think we even have a beta or CTP due out in the next month or so. So it's really, this is the time where Silverlight development and UI components are really picking up. And again, if we talked again in 6 months, I think we'd see a full story fleshed out of Silverlight tools and UI components out there, and developers really being excited about building real Silverlight applications.
Todd, thanks so much for your time. It was great, and I'm very sure that our viewers are going to benefit from whatever conversation we had.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me out here.